Hello, and welcome to the MOR Cast, the intersectionality of motherhood and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Shon-tay. This episode of the MOR Cast is entitled The Paradox. Webster defines a paradox as a statement or proposition that, despite sound reasoning from acceptable premises, leads to a conclusion that seems senseless, logically unacceptable, or self-contradictory. In other words, it's a contradiction. Let's get into the paradox. I like to think that I ended up in business because I was overeducated yet underqualified for the job I wanted. My education outweighed my new skill set because I left the workplace and became a stay-at-home mom some years ago. Then I went back to school, and the skills and employment from my previous life was too old to be considered for the current job market, and it was not aligned with my advanced degree. Truthfully speaking, when I came home to be a stay-at-home mom, I asked the Lord for a business to do from home. He gave me what I asked for. It was something I had previously done as a hobby. And of course, when I did it, I did not see it as marketable until He showed me. The whole idea came from Him. It was my desire and His plan. At this time, I did not know that I was called to entrepreneurship. I asked for the business because I felt there was more to me than just being my husband's wife and my kid's mom. In the infancy of the business, God gave me an idea, He gave me a name, He showed me how to do it, where to start, and sent people with skills to support and the means to sow into the business. Initially, it had momentum and a steady stream of customers, and it went well for a while. When it began to plateau in sales, I was not sure how to move it to the next level, and as I searched for clarity and information, it became a little daunting. As time progressed, I thrust myself further into being a wife and a mom, and less into the product. I knew I was not supposed to give up on entrepreneurship, but because I had enjoyed the initial steady stream of sales, I was disillusioned. As I continuously served my family in salt, complacency began to set in. I went back to the Lord for more instructions, and as the Lord gave me new, more challenging instructions, I was gripped with fear. He nudged me further, and I gave more excuses about why I could not do it. Although I knew He had been with me in the beginning and had worked so wondrously on my behalf, when I began experiencing challenges, I took my eyes off Him and His ability and looked at the situation in front of me and my inability. For every word of encouragement He gave to take the leap, I had an excuse. Imagine me telling the Creator of the universe how and why I could not do something. At one point, He told me to take my kids with me while advertising, which in hindsight would have been easy. One thing I know is that it's hard for people to say no to children. But I had allowed the series of no's and no replies to get the best of me. I realized that this instruction would push me far out of my comfort zone, and I was gripped with fear. I began to procrastinate. As I procrastinated, it eventually failed. Not because of God, but because of me. I stopped trusting God's ability and magnified what I perceived to be challenges, the fear, the lack of faith, the procrastination, and other things. In the beginning of the business, God was so gracious. He gave me all I needed on a silver platter. I say that because there was very little I needed to do. Most things came to me very easily, and much of which I did not pay for. He sent people to seed into me. The support and the seeds came fast and furiously. People wanted to help so much that I often did not have the chance to ask for assistance. As soon as I shared what I was doing, they were often ready to purchase or to support in some kind of way. I did the work, of course, but I did not have the hustle and the grind that most entrepreneurs speak of. The sales were consistent. My only concern was how to increase volume. This momentum carried me for about 3 years. As time progressed, I was still advertising the business, but I also knew it was time for me to move to the next level. I began to do pop-ups and booth sales, and people took my information, but they never contacted me for the product. In time, leads and organic sales began to slow. It felt like people were no longer interested. This, coupled with experiencing challenges in my family, was more than I wanted to manage. It damaged my confidence and my drive. I liken this stage to toddlerhood, the time when a child begins to walk and they're not quite stable on their own, so they pull up using the couch and a table or another object, and they let go after attempting to stand on their own, but then they often fall. They may get a couple of bumps and bruises, but at this time, moms and dads become coaches. We dust them off, we kiss their boo-boos, we encourage them to keep going because we know they must not give up. They've got to get back out there and master it. Knowing I was deficient, I began to look for a coach. Unfortunately, I didn't find one. As I shared in a previous episode, I am a first-generation entrepreneur, so there was no one in my lineage to assist, meaning that I had to lean a little harder into the presence of the Lord to hear and then ask the pertinent questions and wait for an answer, then do what He said. When I asked, He gave me instructions. I wrote them down, but it seemed like a big leap to follow these new instructions. I ran several scenarios in my head, and I felt I just couldn't do it. That's what I told myself. I told myself it wouldn't work. I sought out professional sources, and the few that came through could not really help me. They didn't have expertise in that area. I did not go back to the Lord immediately because I knew in my head I felt like I could not do what He told me to do before. So as I waited in fear and sales dried up, I was left with a room full of product and no one to sell it to. After much time elapsed, He told me to go back to school. I procrastinated with excuses. When I finally took the plunge and went back to school, He provided 2 jobs for me while attending school. When school was completed, I had put the business behind me and planned to look for a full-time job after graduation. I was convinced that a new degree, job skills, connections, and a fresh outlook had to work for me. But a year before graduation, I felt a strong nudge to start a new business. I knew it was from the Lord. I told Him I would start as soon as I finished school. On the day of my last presentation, I felt another nudge to start. I took 2 weeks off to catch my breath, then began walking in obedience because the call and assignment on my life is for entrepreneurship. While I was starting this new business, I also was attempting to get a job. But absolutely every interview that I had ended up with no offers. And so I came to realize not only was He calling me to entrepreneurship, but He was calling me to full-time entrepreneurship. So I didn't get the chance to toggle back to the workplace. Every opportunity that I had seemed to dry up. Every lead that I had seemed to dry up. And at the end, there was one part-time job that was very promising, and He told me to let it go. And so today, I am that full-time entrepreneur. much of which I have because he's given it to me. I cannot say it is because of my own ideas or imaginations, but it is because of what he has downloaded to me. And so as I walk in this space of full-time entrepreneurship, I do make mistakes sometimes. I do. However, I cling to what he's told me because in this season, I will not redo what I've done before, but I will walk in obedience and it will be a success. Hey there, are you someone who loves to write? Do you constantly get words from the Lord and need a place to write them down? Or have you written so much in your old journal that you're in need of a new one? Well, head on over to Amazon.com and get you the Talk Like God journal today. It's going to encourage you to document all those words that the Lord has said to you and all those ideas that He's given you. And not just write them down, but pray them through so that you can produce what God has said over your life. Head on over to Amazon.com and search Talk Like God Journals or Shon-tay Mays Carpenter. That's SHANTAMAYS Carpenter and get you the Talk Like God Journal today. You'll be glad you did. Need some encouragement? Tune in to Test and Testimonies Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live on Instagram. Test and Testimonies will have you on the edge of your seat as you witness women sharing their trials and their triumphs. Test and Testimonies Friday nights on Instagram at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Talk Like God. You won't be disappointed, but you will definitely be encouraged. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the MOR Cast on the Paradox. Remember, your business is like a child. It starts as an infant, and you must keep working at it, nurturing it, and feeding it through all of the stages until it reaches maturity. If you have received instructions from the Lord regarding your business, you must be diligent to follow through. Do not second guess His instructions for you. Deal with any vices that you have. Do not allow yourself to be fearful, because fear will stop you from making that next step. It is an enemy to faith. So build your faith. You cannot skip steps. You cannot choose what you want to do. You must follow all of His instructions. If you do not follow the last instruction He's given you, you won't get the next one, because He's waiting for you to do what He told you the last time. Otherwise, you already have all of the instructions that you need. So do those by faith and watch Him give you more. Remember, God wants you to succeed. It is His desire to bless you. And when you're blessed, God gets the glory. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to drop me a line here or chat with me on Twitter at the MOR Cast. Please share this episode with someone else. And as always, you have the option to be a supporter of the MOR Cast. Until next time.